Does this essentially now confirm that an asteroid did kill the dinosaurs all those years ago?
Yeah, this is kind of signed, sealed, delivered. The proverbial nail in the coffin in more ways than one to the dinosaurs, and that's because really this is that final key piece of evidence in this. Because previously, what we had a crater off the northern part of Mexico that happened around 66 million years ago, the time the dinosaurs got wiped out, and all across the world there were signs of ash and dirt and dust from that same period, and asteroid dust in particular. What we wanted to find was bits of that asteroid in the sample at the spot the asteroid we think happened in Mexico. And that's essentially what they confirmed with the sample you're seeing on your screen right now.
This is really fascinating because, people call that day the day when the sky fell, back when the dinosaurs became extinct. Do we have an indication of how this would have played out with that asteroid on that day?
Yeah, and this is actually one of the helpful things of finding this. We can see essentially how much energy, how much bits was left over in the crater. So when this asteroid hit, we think it was, upwards of 100 kilometers, potentially 150 kilometers when it hit the Earth's atmosphere. When it hit the Earth's atmosphere, it essentially detonates and explodes. It's traveling so fast. So this produces a massive shock wave. We're talking about hundreds of times the power of a nuclear bomb going through the Earth's atmosphere. Then the asteroid crashes into the dirt and it has another essentially secondary explosion. Now, this throws up all of that dirt and the bits of asteroid. And so this pollutes the skies. So you're blanketing the Earth in a layer of asteroid dust and dirt and debris from that crater. And this would have been in the skies for potentially years, blocking out the sun. Now, this obviously then triggers the death of plants, which then the animals that eat the plants then die, and then the dinosaurs that eat the animals that eat the plants die. So it doesn't happen, overnight. It happens gradually over the course of a couple years, if not even 5 years. So it's not, an instantaneous thing, but it's a massive event, all triggered from this one collision that we can pinpoint this asteroid hit in this location at this time. And so it I guess allows us now to think about what asteroids actually should we be worried about in the future? Because 66 million years ago, is it that long ago in the history of the Earth?
Well, that's a good question, but certainly a fascinating discovery,
Yeah.
and it puts to bed really what's been a mystery for so long. So an incredible discovery. Now, moving on, Brad, because NASA, their new Space Launch System rocket, which they plan to take them to the moon, that's finally passed its last test. So do you think that goal of getting to the moon is likely now?
Yeah, this was something they really desperately needed. So the Space Launch System has been delayed quite a bit. And we saw about 6 weeks ago, they tried to do what's called that final static testing, where they mount it in the ground, they essentially hold it still, and they fire the engines. Now, about 6 weeks ago, it only went for about a minute before they had to shut down. Yesterday, they were able, or, early yesterday morning, they were able to do the full over 8 minute test that you're seeing right now. Because it takes about 8 minutes and 20 seconds or so to get outside the Earth's atmosphere far enough that you don't need that massive thrust. So they want to make sure it burns or goes the whole time. That then puts them on a course at the right speed to get to the moon in the few days that they want to get. So the fact that they were able to do this finally, it's a big step for them, because they think now they can reach their first launch, hopefully November, December this year. And that would just be to go around the moon with no people. And again, if that all works, then yes, I think they would be decently on track to have a human on the moon in 3 to 4 years' time.
Great to hear. Certainly a positive step forward, as you said. Now, Brad, a new study has suggested that most of the water that used to be on Mars may have gone into the dirt or ground. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, when we look at Mars, we see evidence of canyons, we see evidence of water flows on the surface, we see the ice caps. But the question is, if we see water everywhere, why don't we see it now? Did it evaporate into space? Did it get sucked up? Did those oceans get sucked up? Or maybe just after the thinning of an atmosphere, because we do know Mars's atmosphere is quite thin, especially compared to Earth, maybe eventually with the sun and radiation from the sun, it essentially dried up into the ground, but dried up over such a long period that it's not like it's mud, that it's really hydrogen and oxygen, which is H2O water, is essentially just bound into the dirt. Now, this is actually quite interesting because if that's the case, if the water didn't just disappear into space or somewhere else or evaporate, and it is hydrogen and oxygen still in the ground, that means potentially when people get to the Mars, they can get that hydrogen and oxygen out and actually put it together or use it as rocket fuel, because that's the key here. Hydrogen and oxygen are key ingredients for rocket fuel, and if it's already kind of broken up in the things we can use, may actually make future Mars exploration even easier.
Good to hear. Lots to discover there, that's for sure. Now, Brad, a few years ago, there was an object that came into the solar system from outer space. Now, what exactly is it? Because they found what it is. When I first saw it, I thought it looked like a choc chip cookie to me. But I'm sure it's not. But can you explain what exactly is it?
Yeah, it's gone from a cigar-shaped object to potentially an asteroid to a comet. Now it's called Oumuamua, or visitor from afar, or scout in Hawaii. So it was discovered about 4 years ago. And when it came into our solar system, it wasn't orbiting the sun. It came at a different angle and speed than everything else. So it literally did come to appear from interstellar space, from another solar system. Now, they've been analyzing what it's made up of, and a new study has recently shown that it's actually quite rich in frozen nitrogen. Now, when we look at things like Pluto, Pluto has lots of nitrogen ice on its surface. So maybe this thing, instead of being more cigar shaped, is more, yeah, cookie or biscuit shaped.
Leftovers.
Leftover bits, essentially, of this frozen nitrogen. So maybe this actually was a piece or a fragment of a Pluto-like object, a distant dwarf planet in another solar system, broke apart or something happened, it didn't keep in that solar system, so it got flung out essentially, and just aimlessly traveled through space until it just happened to come into ours. So this is a really obviously mysterious object that people keep wanting to study. It was the first of its kind until Borisov was found 2 years later. So maybe these things are more common, and maybe they hint at things like Pluto existing in actually other solar systems. Would be quite interesting in understanding how they exist, because it's really hard to find the Plutos out there.
It's still a leftover choc chip cookie to me. Brad, we'll leave it there. Brad Tucker, great to chat. Thank you so much.
I love it.